Hello everyone, my name is Sam McManus, Managing Director of YellowWood Adventures, and I'm delighted to welcome two guests, Maria Paola Loi and Renato Granieri, both Sardinians, to join me today to talk about the fantastic island of Sardinia. Maria, Renato, welcome. I'll just share our slide deck with the call, which you can see here. And yeah, would you like to introduce yourselves? Maybe Maria Paola, you can go first.
Ciao, I'm Maria Paola and I'm a local native Sardinian tour guide. And I will be a local expert in this tour program that we have arranged with Sam and Renato to show you the highlights of this Mediterranean island and to get a great insight on the island's culture, archaeology, nature, food and wines and everything that Sardinia has to offer, including offering you let's say an opportunity to understand also the concept of longevity, which characterizes the life of the local Sardinians, as Sardinia is one of the 5 blue zones where we have a very high percentage of centenarians. I'm 158, and I will be leading the groups.
Fantastic, thank you. How about yourself, Renato? How old are you?
Hi everyone, my name is Renato and I was born and raised in Sardinia, in the little
Before
town
Christ.
northwest of the island. I've been living in the UK for the last 23 years, just over 23 years, and I'm a professional wildlife photographer. So I'm really excited to be taking you, to accompany you to Sardinia and guide you taking pictures and just take advantage of this beautiful island.
Exactly, and we do have a guided photography tour of which both Renato and Maria Paola will be leading. That departs on the 26th of February 2026. That's the first departure we have for that. I was very fortunate enough to visit Sardinia this year with my wife on holiday. It is the most stunning, unexpected island, I would have to say. You know, I consider myself well-traveled globally and also in Europe. I know Italy pretty well, but Sardinia was just so unexpected, and so relaxing and just such a beautiful place. So you can see here the YellowWood map, which we have for the photography tour. Obviously, we can offer private family holidays. We have separate group adventures as well. We have northern add-on adventures that are available as well. Obviously, everything is taking place in the south of the island here. So let's just jump in to a few things. Renato, I believe these are your photos of these flamingos. Why flamingos in Sardinia?
Maria Paola, do you want to take your...
Well, I live in the city of Cagliari, and it is the only place in the whole of Italy where the flamingos are actually breeding at the beginning of May, June every year since 1992. When I was a little girl, when I was younger, the flamingos simply wintered in our lagoons, in our wetlands. And then all of a sudden in June 92, the first little chicks that are so cute were born in our brackish, wetlands water, and it made us very proud of having them as part of our little population. They are amazing, and you can see them flying from one lagoon to the other. Sardinia has lots of different wetlands, but it's mainly in the city of Cagliari that you can spot them in the lagoons. And in our programs, we take some hiking tours around the main marshes to watch them and to see how they live. They are amazingly beautiful.
Brilliant. Yeah, and I, had the good fortune to see them myself, and it just has that sort of such a funny feeling of being in the Mediterranean, but then having all of these flamingos, and there's quite sort of wild tabletop mountains. If you'd have plonked me there and taken off a blindfold, I would have guessed I was in Africa. It does have a very different feel to it. But there's so much culture, there's so much history. I think we've got some photos here from the Sound Garden. Could you explain a little
Yes.
bit more about this?
Yes, of course. Nearby the city of Cagliari, in the Campidano Plain, which is a very fertile area where we've always been growing, crops, mainly wheat. So where there's, let's say, a population of peasants and farmers, there's a village called San Sperate, where there was a great artist who passed away not long ago. He even had state funerals because he was a great contemporary Sardinian Italian artist whose name was Pinuccio Sciola, who started painting, the walls of the houses, the front of the houses with trompe l'oeil, a type of art that cheat your eyes. It looks real, but it's actually painted, where he could express himself, showing the local products, the local activities. But in more recent times, he dedicated his efforts, let's say, in carving basalt, limestone, and other type of rocks. You can see them in the pictures. And he used to carve them with lines and other geometrical patterns. And he realized that even if rocks look so hard, they are fluid and liquid. And you can actually play music with Pinuccio Sciola's work. Those are called the sounding stones. And they express music by using another piece of rock. You can play with them. They've been used in concerts. They are available in many important places around the world because Pinuccio was internationally famous. And it's amazing how you can go into his garden where all his works are displayed, and you can listen to the different sounds of the different type of rocks that he carved and sculpted. And he said that he had found the music of the universe inside the rocks. Rocks are alive, even if they look stiff, and fixed. He was able to make them elastic, and you can play music with them. It's amazing. It's a great experience to visit Pinuccio Sciola's Sound Garden.
That's beautiful. And of course, it is on our itinerary. I mean, there's just so much to talk about. Looking at the architecture here, this is the Sugarloaf Island. Renato, why is it called the Sugarloaf?
Oh, that's a question for Maria Paola, I believe.
Because this type of natural rock limestone monuments that is just in the middle of the western side of the Sardinian coastline resembles the Brazilian pau de açúcar. And that's why it was given this particular name in Italian, even though in Sardinian language it's called in a different way because it resembles a tortoise, or a sea turtle, So in Sardinian language it's called in a different way, but since it looks similar to the pau de açúcar in Brazil, it was given the name pan di zucchero in Italian, which means the sugar loaf.
Brilliant. I love it. Here's a picture of me where earlier from this year, we stayed on the southeast of the island, and then this is a photo of the southwest where we also stayed. I mean, it does not take much to get off the beaten track in Sardinia. We walked down this coastal path from the village you can see up ahead. There was no one there. We went swimming. We just had the best time. I can't explain how relaxing the island is. As soon as you land, like I could just feel all the sort of, it's not like mainland Italy, which is European and bustling and busy. Sardinia, it's just so peaceful and so quiet. Even the capital had a very sort of relaxed atmosphere. And then out in places like this, this is my wife, Emma. You can see how happy she is. We hired a boat. The water is so clear, so clear. We went snorkeling every day, and we did, some coastal hikes here. It's just magic. It's everything you want from an island. So, and I understand, it's where Italians go on holiday to get beach life. Is that correct?
Correct. So we are literally more kind of invaded in July and August, but we have 1849 kilometers of coastline. Believe me, even in the busiest time of the season, you can find your own spot. Those who enjoy hiking a little bit, you know, instead of going to a public beach full of people with leaders, bedding establishment, you can hike for 20 minutes and you can be on your own.
Which
and
is exactly what we did. Yeah.
You experience that because Sardinia has a very little population. We're only 1.5 million people. And the island is really huge. People don't realize how big it is. So in our programs with the YellowWood, we've selected some very interesting areas that give you a great insight on the island's culture, nature, and whatever Sardinia has to offer.
Just a quick mention on food here. The seafood is just, you can see we've got lobster. Is that linguine or type? I don't know the name of this type of pasta. Tuna tartare. I mean, the food is unbelievable. We didn't have a bad meal.
Yeah. It's really genuine. We have lots of organic products. The seafood, the fruit and vegetables are locally grown. We have great olive oil. And it's an island that I describe as a continent. Every area has to offer you different things. Even in terms of food and wines, you can go around the island and find different wines and different type of pasta or ravioli. And you can experience all the differences in the southwest, in the southeast, in the north. That's why we describe it as a continent.
I love that. Yeah. Let's talk about photography a little bit. Renato, these are your photos. Isn't this from the historic site of the mines of Sardinia?
Yeah, that's right. So there is an area on the west coast with lots of remainings from the old mine days, and I believe this was probably a British mine. Maria Paola, correct me if I'm wrong.
Yes, and obviously there was a time where there was a British management too, but they passed through different companies. Yeah, but there was an English company too that ran the mine where they used to get mainly galena with a high content of silver, lead. It was a very important mining industry.
So I think the excitement of visiting specifically this place is obviously you have all these rusty trolleys and railways and all sorts of machineries. They make a very very atmospheric and very photogenic area. Also because you can see there's sand around, and they is actually classified as probably the only desert in Europe. So the nature side with these old trees battered by or shaped by the wind coming from the sea. So it's a very interesting place. And there should be, I believe, a picture taken at night straight after this.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah, if you go back to that. So this is one of my very favorite places for night photography, because there's basically no light pollution. So the skies on a good, obviously, day, they pollution free. So there is no an external light affecting the images, and it just makes it very surreal in a way. This is no Namibia, but it gets as close as you can possibly imagine to this sort of environment. Now, just to emphasize from a photography point of view, so you don't really need to be a pro to join this trip. You can simply come with an open mind. You can simply come with your mobile phone. Well, the only thing why I would ask you is to come with lots of excitement and eager to learn something, because the reason why I'm there is to provide you with tools, is to provide you any sort of tips and advice on how to take better pictures. So don't be intimidated if you don't have like a professional camera. Just we come with open mind and with a strong interest in capturing the beauty of the island.
That's perfect. Thank you. I love that. That's a particularly nice image there of the sugarloaf that we mentioned earlier as well. Just going back to the ocean, I mean, it's so clean. It's so untouched. And I'd mentioned Africa earlier. You just mentioned Namibia, Renato. It just doesn't feel like a lot of European countries. It feels you have that draw of Africa there. I really
Africa,
feel that.
France, and Spain. The western side of Sardinia, which is the area where piscinas with the sand dune beaches and the pan di zucchero, the western side of the island, before Sardinia was formed, were part of the Spanish, peninsula and the French coastline. So the west side of Sardinia doesn't belong to Italy. It's a completely different type of land, geologically speaking, and it's one of the oldest geological side of Europe. We're talking about, in terms of the southwestern coastline of the island, of geological formations that date back to the Cambrian era, 500 million years ago. So Sardinia is energetic and holistic by nature, if you know what I mean. The subsoil, the minerality is given to the wines, for example, and the things we grow. And the sea is very safe. You showed some pictures to show actually how pristine and clear the Sardinian waters are. You have to add that it's safe to swim, safe to go snorkeling, no sharks. You can spot a dolphin probably, or other beautiful fish. But
yeah, we saw one actually from a boat when we were there. And let's continue that theme of ancient history. Tell me about the Nuraghi, which I really don't think a lot of people know about.
Yes, Sardinia had a very important civilization, very mysterious one, because we don't know where they came from, probably from Anatolia, Mesopotamia, but we're not sure. But we know that these very mysterious people built more than 30,000 megalithic towers. And we still have about 8,000 that dot the Sardinian landscape. There are some single towers and other prehistoric settlements, such as the one that appears in the picture, which are proper villages of the Bronze Age. They date back to the 14th century BCE, and they characterized by multi-towered buildings that they like prehistoric castles surrounded by outer defensive walls, and rural villages with huts, which were like thatched roofs huts that we still build in the mountains. And actually hikers who take some hiking trails can actually use this type of huts that are used by goat herders and shepherds for the night. So things move very slowly in Sardinia at a very slow pace. We still have probably traditions that come from the Nuragic age. We can make comparison with other megalithic cyclopean buildings that are found in the Mediterranean, but even as far as Scotland, in the Isle of Skye, you have the Broch. We've given different dates of constructions, but we can find a sort of fil rouge, an alignment that connects all these megalithic structures that are found all over the world. And they're attracting a lot of visitors and also filmmakers who are trying to understand how they were actually built, how they could move these huge, massive stones that still, are there, balanced in the towers. They are still available all over the island. And these towers, called the Nuraghi, or multi-towered, more complex Nuraghi, are built using the dry wall masonry technique. So there's no use of concrete or mortar binding between the stones. So it's also, incredible that they still stand and no one knows how they were built and by who they were built. There are lots of archaeological theories nowadays, the Nephilim of the Bibles, the aliens. I'm also in one of the TV programs, Ancient Aliens History Channel, and where, the talents try to understand more. But as I said, it's a mystery. There are lots of secrets, but it's really interesting to go around these nuraghi places. And in our program, we have actually included the UNESCO site, probably the most famous of our nuragic megalithic sites, which is called the Su Nuragi. It means the Nuraghe, and it's found in the rural village of a fantastic countryside region called Marmilla, nearby the rural village of Barumini.
Perfect. And it obviously gives loads of opportunities for photography. What's this particular site here? Because this is very curious.
Okay, talking about the religion and the religious sacred temples built by the same people who erected the nuraghe, we have the sacred well temples. Natural springs that were included into, as you can see, into a megalithic type of well with a staircase that gets inside the ground. There is an enclosure that separates the human world from this unknown world that you can reach by taking the steps and reaching the level of the water. This is Santa Cristina. It's an amazing sacred well, but there are many others around the island. This is probably the most famous, and it's in the middle of the island that you can visit if you decided to take the extended program after our proper tour that lasts 8 days. You can stay and visit more. And Santa Cristina would definitely be a highlight, because it's a temple where the nuragic people worshipped water, which was identified as the great goddess mother they used to worship. And it's also probably a sort of astronomical observer. We don't know exactly, but there are many theories about these sacred wells, because very interesting and unique phenomena take place during the solstices or the equinoxes, where you can see your shadow if you stand at the bottom of the staircase before springtime. You can see your shadow reflected straight in the water, and in the wall in front of you, your shadow is upside down. I can send you a picture to show you what happens during this very brief moment of the year before spring for about 10 days. I have experienced that several times. And believe me, the feeling that you get when you see your water reflected normally and then upside down in front of you is goosebumps. Really.
That's amazing.
And you really wonder, what knowledge did these people have?
Yeah, it's so mysterious.
They knew a lot. They knew a lot about alignment, constellation, the Pleiades. They knew a lot. They had probably a kind of technology that we have lost. We don't know.
Excellent. So looking at some beautiful pictures of the native horses here. We were chatting before we started recording this podcast. In the UK, Frankie Dettori, I didn't actually know until you mentioned he's Sardinian. Sardinia is very famous for jockeys and for horse racing. Again, something new I just discovered today about the island.
Yeah, we've always had a tradition of horse riding. In the picture, you can see some of the only European wild horses in the world, and they are in a volcanic plateau about an hour away from Cagliari, nearby the archaeological site of Barumini that we just saw in a picture, where there are about, in the Jara Plateau, 600 little horses. They're tiny compared to an average horse. They're a size between a pony and an average horse, about 1.30 centimeters at the withers, and they run and live wildly in the forest of the Jara Plateau. We go there hiking when it's possible. It's never guaranteed, or we can't get committed that we are definitely going to see them, because they're wild. They live divided into families with a stallion leader. They're amazing. But we also have horse breeds that we use in our tournaments, in our carnival events. We have sort of medieval jousts and very great riders like Franco Dettori. And our riders even win the Palio di Siena. The last two winners are Sardinians, because here we breed a type of horse that you also have in the UK, and it's called Anglo-Arabo Sardo, English Arabian Sardinian breed. great type of horses. Yes. And with Renato, if you go hiking, you can find a way to take them in a picture, right?
Yeah, of course. And these are some images of more Naragi towers I can see here. Tell me a little bit about the people.
You know, if you travel with me or Renato, as we are local, we can interact and get connected with the local people in a village. They're really happy to speak to foreigners. We don't have a mass tourism in the small rural villages. So people are very hospitable. And this is a picture that I took in a small place near Alghero in the northwest of the island, in Tinnura. I just bumped into these people when we were looking at murals in the front of the houses, and look at the lady sitting next to me. She was cleaning some green bees in the street with her friends, gossiping and chatting. And it's nice because we use our local native language. Sardinia has a local language, not a dialect like everywhere else in the mainland Italy. We speak a language that is only oral transmitted called Sardo. So it's nice to refer to these elderly people that you bump into using your local language. It makes them more comfortable. Yeah, you put them at their own ease and they just want to chat and understand where do your guests come from, and they offer something to drink sometimes, and never say no if you are in Sardinia. Look at this man. It's so happy. He's one of the centenarians that live in one of the blue zone villages where people live more than 100 years, and you can start getting more informed about the blue zones and how to live to 100, looking at some of the documentaries that you find on TV, such as the one that you see in the picture that is available on Netflix. And there's a section dedicated to Sardinia because it's about the 5 different blue zones where doctors are studying the DNA and the lifestyle of local
it's these special hubs. There's one in Okinawa, Japan.
Okinawa in Japan, Ikaria, one of the many islands in Greece, Sardinia, particularly the east side of the island, where you have a region that is pretty isolated with villages up in the mountains. Then there is a peninsula in Costa Rica, and a community of the Seventh-day Adventist religious people who live isolated in California. These are the 5 blue zones, but this type of survey has been started by a Sardinian professor together with a Belgian one, but other scholars are getting involved and they are, checking to see whether there are other places where statistically there are very long-lived people in the world. But so far, these are the 5 blue zones that they've been selected, where it seems that we tend to live long. I told you, I'm 158, almost 159 in 2026.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's I've been to Okinawa as well in Japan, and it's very very healthy diet, very strong sense of community.
Yeah, that's it.
Lower stress lifestyle. There's these certain sort of elements that just contribute to a happier, longer life, hopefully.
Exactly. As I said, we don't keep the centenarians in a museum or in a zoo. We have to understand the way we live, what we eat. And apparently, for example, the red wine, because of the minerality of the soil, is very rich in polyphenols. It's called the Cannonau. It's the most traditional red wine we have in the island. And most of the people who live very long have been making their own wines. Yeah. Since they were kids in the vineyard with their fathers, making their house wine. And it's very, very rich in antioxidant properties that we have a village in the east side of the island, which has the Guinness for men longevity. Doctors were pretty puzzled when they realized that men lived much longer than women in this particular village.
Really?
Oh, yes. And the wines, I'm not saying that you have to drink a gallon every day. Yeah, that would affect your liver. But if you accompany your organic food, your good cheese, we produce a lot of cheese and great food, in Sardinia. But we also eat meat in these villages because they were great herders and shepherds. And they still live longer, thanks to the Cannonau red wine's properties.
Yeah. And just aesthetically, the island is just very, very beautiful. It is, you can see there's lovely works of art here. It's just got quaint, soft colors.
Yeah.
It just looks beautiful to look at. It's sort of very understated and rugged and not showy. And I just love that about the place. I
That's
really
good.
do.
I'm
Yeah.
glad that you enjoyed it. And Sardinia will call you back. That's the
Absolutely,
beauty
and I love these murals here that
yeah.
have been painted. You find these all over the island. Obviously,
Yeah.
great for photography, but
Mhm.
it's just I love that feeling of art. Really, it was a
Yeah,
great place to read. I found myself reading a lot. I was reading a lot of Roman history when I was there. You just slow down. You just slow down for sure.
Mhm. Yeah. Yes, I told you the we have a very slow rhythm. We're very laid back. There's no rush in Sardinia. Why should that be? You know, take your
Exactly. Yeah, and
time,
just I mean,
enjoy nature. Our real luxury is what you're showing us in this picture. You see, this is
just
our luxury. This is our wealth, nature, food. These are the steps that lead Renato. These are the Domus de Janas. The previous picture showed a tomb of the Neolithic age. So these are necropolis that precede the megalithic architecture of the Nuraghi. They are from like 4000 before Christ. And they resemble dwellings, and local people, before we realized there were archaeological, necropolis, local people invented legends saying that they were the dwellings of these tiny little fairies who used to live there and dance at night with a golden loom. And if the children didn't behave, they could become evil. And from Janas, which are the positive fairies, they would become Kogas, the bad, evil witches. This is an amazing rock cut tomb, but you have lots of them, and I have to advise you. We have great news because the Domus de Janas, houses of the fairies necropolis of Sardinia, have been included in the UNESCO Heritage List last year.
I saw that. Yeah, congratulations, and well deserved as well. So they'll
Great
mean,
achievement.
yeah,
Because we
definitely.
only have the UNESCO Barumini. Sorry.
Some of them, just to follow up, if you get some chambers are actually painted.
Yeah.
So you still get, obviously, you see the outside of the house of the fairies, but most of them are accessible, so you can actually get in there and just admire the colors, very well preserved. Obviously, not all of them, but some of them are very, very well preserved with lots of colors and paintings and everything else. So this is one, in my opinion. I mean, I love the Nuragis and everything, but this is even more mysterious.
Oh, I love them. Sometimes you have to crawl to get inside, and then you can stand up because the ceiling is pretty high once you get inside the chambers. And as Renato was saying, you can find, bas relief carvings representing the symbols of the goddess mother, like spirals, or the stylized horns of the god Taurus. They were the common gods, that they worshipped, like in Egypt or in the eastern side of the Mediterranean, same kind of religion. They're really amazing. And we've included them together with the Nuraghi. We can also go and see in southern Sardinia some of the most beautiful ones in Pimentel. And also, if you sing inside one of these chambers, the acoustic is amazing. I've seen people checking with sound frequencies. They're very energetic places. There are places where people go meditating or spend the night, breathing or chanting mantras. It's becoming very common that all these archaeological sites of Sardinia, as used, are places where to regenerate, where to to meditate and to contemplate the mysteries of the universe.
What are we looking at here? What are these different types of food?
Renato, you miss this food. You live in the UK, so please comment on that.
I still remember the good habits, though.
Well, I enjoy fish and chips anyway. I wouldn't mind.
Yeah, but it doesn't taste like this. I mean, you know, I mentioned it before. The seafood is just exquisite. We eat, honestly, I'm not joking. We hired a car. We stopped at a gas station and had spaghetti, and it was one of the best meals we've ever had. And it was a gas station. I was just like,
oh, I probably even know where it is.
Yeah.
I know the one you mean.
Obviously, we've got squid here. We've got like seafood linguine, mussels. But what's this one on the right here?
On the very right, you have the most traditional Sardinian dessert, since this is an island of shepherds, because the island is very big with a very little population, like 1.5 million people, but we have 5 million sheep. So dairy products are delicious in Sardinia. And we use the fresh cheese to make this type of big raviolo that you deep fry. And then it's filled with the fresh cheese that melts when you fry. It's called ceada. And then you spread a very special type of honey exclusively produced in the island, which is a little expensive. It's called the miele amaro. It means bitter or sour honey. And it's especially made out of the arbutus, a Mediterranean shrub called a strawberry tree in English. And it has this slightly sour aftertaste that matches, the flavor of the cheese and of this great fluffy pastry that you deep fry. This is called ceada or cebada, according to the different local dialects. It's amazingly good. What do you think, Renato?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
A close friend of mine has married a Sardinian woman. They got married in Venice, and they have a house on the northeast of the island. So we went to stay for one night, and she bought 4 enormous cheeses and put them on the kitchen. And I've never eaten so much cheese in my life. They were such rich flavors. And I love cheese all over the world, but it was very different to what it was, just melting in our mouths. It was unbelievable.
We produce great pecorino sheep cheese, which is DOP, so protected origin of, denomination of protected origin, and it's called the Fiore Sardo, and it's so good. Yeah. Look at that.
Lovely spot there. Are these vineyards?
Yes, these are vineyards. Yeah.
We spoke about the wine already. These are just some snaps that we've put together. Obviously, these towers you can see all over the coastline. Tell us more about the honey.
I mentioned the bitter honey, which is an exclusive produce of Sardinia, and it's particularly expensive. But we have lots of different types of honey. There are lots of beehivers around the island. So we use our Mediterranean scented maqui for making honey, or as I said, 1,000 flowers. So it's a very ancient art. And actually the legend of the creation of Cagliari, for example, the city of Cagliari, there's a Greek legend that says that it was Aristeo from Greece who taught the Sardinians how to make, honey, because Aristeo invented honey and the beehivers. But it's just a legend. But we have lots and lots of producers, and actually we even arrange experiences like bespoke experiences where you can spend a day in a farm doing all these activities, even be a shepherd or be a beehiver for one day, and all sort of activities that characterize our real way of living can be transferred, to a guest who decided to learn more than just spending a normal holiday.
Exactly.
He wants to be to interact with the locals. So we actually have a stop in a farm where in our programs with YellowWood, we make sure that people can really experience how to work in a farm with the locals.
That's brilliant. What are we looking at here? I don't believe I went to this place.
These are fantastic granite boulders that have a special name, and they characterize some part of the Sardinian coastline in the northeastern side, but also in the southeast. and some areas in the southwest have granite rock formations. They have a particular name. They are called rocce taffonate or taffoni. In the local dialect, they called Cuncheddi, Li Cuncheddi. And there are some huge ones that are naturally carved by the elements. They were actually used by the early prehistoric people who settled down in northeastern Sardinia as dwellings or even as tombs. And they are scattered all over the place in the countryside, along the coast. And there are some of them which are natural rock monuments of the island. They are especially protected. They resemble animals, mushrooms. You can play with your fantasy and imagination looking at these fantastic, phantasmagorical, as I call them, rocks.
Yeah. Talking about the island, so the main tour takes place in the south. Is the north actually more built up and a bit more sort of made for holiday, for tourism? Or?
Well, yeah, good question, good point, because the tourism industry was started in the northeastern side by the island, where you have a very fancy, glamorous luxury resorts. Contemporary to the so-called Costa Smeralda, also the southwestern area in the Gulf of Cagliari, Pula and Santa Margherita were developed as tourist resorts. But we have nowadays, even places that in the past weren't so popular that have become more, famous in the recent years. So the south is much more populated than the north. But in terms of tourism, probably the north in the past was more popular and famous than the south. But now there's not much difference. People are also taking more time to explore the island. Like we are doing in 8 days, we can get to understand an area with all its characteristics. So it depends on your interest, because the island is huge.
It is huge, yeah. It takes quite a long time actually if you're going to do the north and the south. It's very large. That's a really lovely photo here.
Yes. Now Sardinia has become also an important destination for hiking trails. And there are some of these projects that have become really, really popular, such as Il Cammino di Santa Barbara. And we have included a little part of this hiking trail in our programs that goes along the coast. And it's dedicated to Santa Barbara, who's the patron saint, to protected miners, firemen. And so we go along the most dramatic landscapes of the island, where there used to be the mining little villages that now are mostly abandoned. So it's a way to enjoy nature, but also meeting the locals, eating with families, staying in rural type of accommodation, enjoying the quiet atmosphere of Sardinia, and also to understand more, like Renato was saying, about the archaeological abandoned places, which is part of our industrial archaeology.
Exactly. There's just so many hidden natural corners, different types of landscapes. It's almost impossible to cover everything. What's this we're looking at here?
This could be a workshop where people can learn how to use clay,
for pottery,
how to make pottery with a local artist, get involved into one of the crafts that has been available in the island since the prehistory.
Yeah, and here we're getting more photos up into the north. You mentioned the sort of those glamorous tourist resorts. They're all on the coast, but actually inland, the north is much more mountainous, and you have these ancient shepherds' villages. Very dramatic landscape. We drove through some of it, and it was really amazing, really stunning.
Yeah. Coastal towers and the white albino donkeys that live in an island in the northwest called the Asinara. These are special and unique type of donkey breeds that you find exclusively in this remote island of Sardinia. It's a park now, but it was a place where there was a penalty prison for a long time. It closed down. When did it close down, Renato? More than 20 years ago, right? Yeah, and now people go there by boat. They land. You can take a Land Rover tour. You can spot the white albinos donkeys of the Asinara. The central limestone mountains of Sardinia, which are like the Dolomites, are great for adventurous hiking, but also beautiful hiking trails along the coast. So in the programs that we're doing with you, Sam, and also the photography tour that we will escort with Renato, we have tried to include both a little bit of the mountain trails, but also hiking along the coast.
Yeah. Just a few. There's some good book recommendations here you can read. I've just started Seeing Sardinia by D.H. Lawrence. Maria, you were saying how do local people feel about this book?
Well, he came when Sardinia was still very backwards, and so probably when he left, he wasn't that impressed. So he was a little sour, but it's interesting to understand his point of view, and his perspective. But go through the reading and you'll understand why I'm laughing, because he had some strange experiences on the way to the end of the journey. So I won't spoiler anything.
Okay.
Read it, because it can be interesting also to take a little tour on the footsteps of D.H. Lawrence and see how the island has changed since then. Yeah.
What about the Jeff Biggers in Sardinia?
Actually, honestly, as I told you, I've been a guide for many years, for a long time. And I think this is one of the greatest books ever published about Sardinia. You really got to understand the culture, the politics, the customs, the craft, the archaeology. Great book. Great.
That's fantastic.
Book.
Well, you heard it here, folks.
I highly recommend to read it.
Yeah, I should have bought that one. Why did I buy the D.H. Lawrence one?
The D.H. Lawrence is a novel where he describes his journey, and it's popular. Everybody reads it before coming to Sardinia. But if you want to understand more about the contemporary way of living with also with a historical background, Jeff Biggers made a great book.
Okay. Really. Well, then both good recommendations. That's fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
We're coming to the end here. You can just see the map again. Obviously, we start in Cagliari, the capital, and then do a loop round. There's an optional add-on adventure in the north. This is for the specific, photography itinerary that's going in February with Renato and Maria Paola. Again, just to emphasize, we do tailor-made tours where you can go to anywhere we've mentioned in this podcast, on a family basis, on a small group tour basis. We're very flexible. We just, at YellowWood, we're all about going to more unexplored places off the beaten track, and Sardinia really hits all of those. From the second I landed, I was like, yes, this is just my kind of place, because it's right there on the doorstep of Europe, but it's very uncrowded, it's very natural, and it felt so different to any other European country I'd ever been to.
And Renato and I are local, so really, Renato, explain what is Sardinia like in February. It can be amazingly beautiful,
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Talking about weather and temperature. Sardinia is one of the sunniest places in Italy, and certainly alongside the Mediterranean. So normally, you can get 18-20 degrees Celsius in the middle of the day. On a sunny day, it normally gets a little bit cooler at night, but then brings obviously clarity and as I said, beautiful skies, starry skies. And going in February, towards the end of February, it's a good time, because I don't expect any crowds. So it's not like summer beach destination. And it's an absolutely fantastic place to explore, where there is literally no one around, and I don't expect to find any crowds. Even the crowdiest places like Cagliari, for example, when obviously it's the biggest city in Sardinia, you're not going to have any sort of feeling of being in a very crowded place. So
yeah, that's right. And nature is outstanding. In the first early months of the year, we have the almond blooming, the almond trees blooming all over the place.
It's
When we
springtime.
go hiking, I'm sure that I can tell you guys, oh, stop, there are some wild asparagus, and I can go foraging with them, because that's really, nature is really generous and abundant in those time of the year. I go picking coastal white chard, white tiny little artichokes, berries. We can have fun, because in the summer you can only find blackberries. You can't go foraging, it's too dry. But in the winter it's completely different. You wouldn't even imagine how green Sardinia can be, and the explosion of fantastic flowers and blossoms everywhere. Really amazingly beautiful.
That's a lovely note to end on. I really would like to thank both of you, Maria Paola, Renato, for joining me today. I hope we have piqued the interest of our clients. It is a really, really fantastic destination. So once again, thanks so much for your time.
Grazie, Sam. Ciao, Renato. And we're looking forward to meeting your guests in February.
Perfect. Ciao.
Ciao, grazie mille. You take care.